Sweetie, your Aunt Jenny's kids actually appreciate what they get. Maybe you should teach yours some manners. I stood in my parents' living room in Bakersfield, watching my mother's lips purse into that familiar, disappointed frown. Around me, wrapping paper littered the floor from my sister's children's extravagant gifts, the latest gaming system, designer clothes, and personalized sports equipment. Meanwhile, my 10-year-old son Ethan quietly examined the frayed edges of a secondhand science kit with missing pieces, and my 7-year-old daughter Lily struggled not to cry over a stained dress that was at least 2 sizes too small. Mom, Lily wears a size 8, not a 4, and this science kit looks like it came from a yard sale, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Well, Melissa, maybe if you and David made better money, you could afford to spoil your kids the way you seem to expect us to. My father chimed in from his recliner, not even looking up from his phone. When you were growing up, you were happy with whatever you got. I bit my tongue, the familiar burn of injustice rising in my throat. My sister Jenny caught my eye from across the room and quickly looked away, busying herself with helping her son connect his new tablet to my parents' Wi-Fi. Her perfect children with their perfect gifts and their perfect grandmother cooing over them. This was just another birthday celebration in the Palmer family hierarchy, where my sister's children were royalty and mine were an obligation. I'd endured this treatment for years, convincing myself it wasn't intentional, that I was being oversensitive. But watching Lily's trembling lip as she clutched that sad excuse for a present, something inside me finally snapped. I didn't know it yet, but this moment would be the last time my parents would have the power to make my children feel less than. The drive back to our home in Tehachapi was quiet. David kept glancing at me from the driver's seat, knowing better than to bring up what had happened until the kids were asleep. In the rearview mirror, I could see Ethan staring out the window while Lily had nodded off, tear tracks still visible on her cheeks. You know what Grandma told me? Ethan finally said, his voice small. She said I should be grateful because some kids don't get anything for their birthdays. David's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. And when I told her there were pieces missing from the science kit, she said I probably just didn't know how to use it right. I turned in my seat to face my son. Ethan, there's nothing wrong with how you use things or what you know. The kit was missing pieces because it wasn't new. But Braden got a brand new microscope, he said, referring to Jenny's son. And it has a light and everything. I know, honey. And Grandpa said maybe next time I'll get something better if I'm not so ungrateful. That was it. That was the moment I decided things were going to change. My children would never again leave their grandparents' house feeling like they were worth less than their cousins. Later that night, after tucking the kids in with extra hugs and reassurances, I sat down at our kitchen table with David. Our modest home was nothing like my parents' sprawling ranch-style house or my sister's custom-built mini mansion, but it was warm and filled with love. David worked as a high school science teacher, and I ran a small bookkeeping business from home. We weren't wealthy, but we weren't struggling either. This has to stop, I said, running my fingers through my hair. Did you see Lily's face? And the things they said to Ethan? David reached across the table and took my hand. I've been saying this for years, Mel. Your parents have always favored Jenny and her kids. It's not in your head. I kept thinking if I just tried harder, if I was more understanding. But they're hurting our children now. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos I'd taken that day, side-by-side snapshots of the gifts. Look at this. Jenny's kids got gifts worth hundreds of dollars each. Lily got a stained dress that wouldn't even fit a kindergartner, and Ethan got a broken science kit that looks like it came from the thrift store clearance bin. David examined the photos. Have you ever actually called them out directly, not just hinted or questioned, but really confronted them? You know how that would go. They'd say I'm being dramatic, or that I'm jealous of Jenny's success. I sighed. But you're right. I need to try one more time, directly, before I do anything else. I composed a careful text to my mother. Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. The kids were really hurt today by the difference in gifts between them and Jenny's children. This isn't the first time this has happened. Could we please have a conversation about this? The response came quicker than I expected. Always so sensitive, Melissa. Your father and I give what we can afford and what we think is appropriate. If that's not good enough for you and your children, perhaps you should stop expecting gifts altogether. I showed David the text, and he shook his head. Classic deflection. Make it your fault for even bringing it up. This is just the most recent example, I said, pulling open a drawer in our kitchen desk. Inside was a folder labeled Family Events. For years, I'd been documenting the disparity. Photos of Christmas mornings, birthday celebrations, random just because gifts that Jenny's kids received while mine got nothing. I'd kept it as a way to convince myself I wasn't imagining things, that I wasn't being unreasonable. What are you thinking? David asked, recognizing the determined look in my eyes. I'm done letting them make our kids feel this way. I'm done with the gaslighting and the manipulations. It's time to make a change. My first step was to create clear boundaries. The next morning, I sent a message to both my parents. After thinking about yesterday, I've made a decision. We won't be accepting any more gifts from you for the children. As you suggested, if what you provide isn't satisfactory to us, we should stop expecting gifts altogether. This isn't about greed. It's about protecting Ethan and Lily from feeling less valued than their cousins. My father responded immediately, "This is ridiculous. So now we can't even give our grandchildren presents. You're punishing us because you're jealous of your sister." My mother followed up, "What kind of mother denies her children gifts from their grandparents? The kids will hate you for this. You always were the difficult one." I didn't respond. Instead, I started documenting everything in a new folder on my computer. Screenshots of text messages, dates, and descriptions of incidents, photos comparing gifts. I wasn't sure what I would do with this information yet, but it felt important to have it organized. The next attack came through my sister. Jenny called that evening, her voice dripping with forced concern. "Mel, what's going on? Mom and Dad say you're forbidding them from giving the kids presents. Don't you think that's a bit extreme?" "Jenny, has it ever occurred to you that your kids get treated differently than mine?" I asked directly. "What are you talking about? Mom and Dad love all their grandkids the same." "Really? So you didn't notice that Braden got a $300 microscope while Ethan got a used science kit with missing pieces? Or that Lily got a stained dress that was 3 sizes too small, while Madison got that designer outfit she wanted?" There was a pause on the line. "Well, they probably just didn't know what to get your kids. Your family is so different." "Different how, exactly?" "You know, you guys are into all that reading and nature stuff. Braden and Madison are into sports and fashion. It's easier to shop for them." I laughed without humor. "Jenny, Ethan plays soccer and basketball. Lily takes dance classes 3 times a week. Mom and Dad have been to exactly 1 game and 0 recitals, but they've never missed one of your kids' events." "That's not fair, Melissa. They're getting older. It's harder for them to drive to Tehachapi all the time." "Tehachapi is 45 minutes away. They drive 2 hours to go to that casino they like every weekend." More silence then. "I think you're blowing this way out of proportion. You've always been sensitive about money and gifts." "This isn't about money. It's about our children being treated as less important than yours. And I'm done with it." After hanging up, I sat down and wrote an email to my parents. Not an angry rant, but a clear, factual account of the pattern I'd observed over the years with specific examples. I attached photos comparing gifts, listed the number of events they'd attended for each set of grandchildren, and noted hurtful comments they'd made to Ethan and Lily. I concluded with, "I'm not asking for expensive gifts. I'm asking for equal treatment of all your grandchildren. If that's not possible, then I think it's better for Ethan and Lily's self-esteem if we maintain some distance." The response was swift and predictable. My mother called, crying about how I was tearing the family apart. My father sent a scathing email about how ungrateful I'd always been. Jenny texted that I was being cruel to our parents in their golden years. But I held firm. We skipped the next family dinner, then another. When my mother asked when they would see the kids again, I responded simply, "When they can be treated with the same consideration as their cousins." 2 months passed. We didn't visit my parents, and they made no effort to come see us. Jenny ran interference, alternating between guilt trips and angry accusations. But something interesting began to happen. My parents started to realize that their usual tactics weren't working. I wasn't backing down. Then came the first attempt at reconciliation. A text from my mother. "We bought some lovely presents for Ethan and Lily. When can you bring them over?" I responded, "Thank you. But as I mentioned, we're not accepting gifts unless all the grandchildren are treated equally." "You're being ridiculous, Melissa. Families shouldn't keep score like this. It's not about keeping score. It's about my children's feelings and self-worth." A week later, my father called. "Your mother is heartbroken. She misses the kids." "Dad, I've been very clear about what needs to change. We've always been generous with you and your family. I don't understand why you're doing this. Have you looked at any of the evidence I sent you? The photos comparing the gifts? The list of events you've attended? That's just your twisted perspective." He snapped. "You've always been envious of your sister. This conversation isn't productive. When you're ready to talk about the actual issue, let me know." I hung up, my hands shaking, but my resolve stronger than ever. The real turning point came 3 months into our standoff. My Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, called me unexpectedly. "Melissa, what's going on with you and your parents? They're telling everyone you've cut them off for no reason." I hesitated, then decided to be honest. "It's not for no reason, Aunt Susan. They consistently treat Jenny's kids better than mine, and when I pointed it out, they accused me of being greedy and ungrateful." "That doesn't sound like them," she said, but her tone lacked conviction. "Would it help if I showed you evidence?" She paused. "What kind of evidence?" I emailed her a selection from my documentation. Photos, text messages, a list of disparities in gifts and attention. An hour later, she called back. "I had no idea it was this bad," she said quietly. "Some of those comments to your children, I'm shocked. This has been going on for years. I've tried talking to them repeatedly, but they always turn it around on me. Your mother told everyone you were demanding expensive gifts and throwing a tantrum when you didn't get your way." I wasn't surprised. Classic deflection. Make me sound unreasonable so no one questions their behavior. Aunt Susan was silent for a moment. "You know, now that I think about it, I've noticed how they fawn over Jenny's kids at family gatherings. I just didn't realize how differently they treated yours." Another pause. "I'm having lunch with your mom next week. Would it be okay if I brought this up?" "Yes, but be prepared for her to deny everything and paint me as the villain. I've known my sister for 65 years. I know when she's lying." Whatever Aunt Susan said at that lunch, it had an impact. The following day, I received a text from my mother. "We'd like to see the children. Maybe we could meet somewhere neutral, like the park in Stallion Springs? Just for an hour or so." I discussed it with David, and we agreed to the meeting with certain conditions. I responded, "We can meet Sunday at 2 p.m. I need to be clear, this isn't about gifts or material things. It's about treating all your grandchildren with equal kindness and consideration. We understand. See you Sunday." The meeting was awkward but civil. My parents brought no gifts, which was a good start. They asked Ethan about his science fair project and Lily about her dance recital. They made an effort, though it felt forced. At the end, my mother asked if they could see the kids again the following weekend. "Let's take it slow," I said. "But yes, we can arrange another visit." Over the next few weeks, we established a new pattern. Short visits, always with David and me present. No gifts unless it was a birthday or holiday, and even then we had an agreement that spending would be equal for all grandchildren. My mother slipped up occasionally, making comments about how sensitive my children were or how easygoing Jenny's kids were in comparison. Each time, I calmly pointed it out, and if she became defensive, we ended the visit. My father was less adaptable. During one visit, he remarked that Ethan should be more grateful for the opportunities he had, unlike some entitled kids these days. I immediately stood up and said, "We're leaving now. When you can speak to my son without insults, we'll try again." It was hard. There were tears and arguments and days when I questioned if I was doing the right thing. But then I'd remember Lily's face as she held that too small, stained dress, or Ethan trying to use a science kit with missing pieces while his cousin played with a top-of-the-line microscope. 6 months into our new arrangement, my parents invited us to a family dinner. Jenny and her family would be there too. I was hesitant, but David thought it might be good to see how my parents handled a situation with all the grandchildren present. We'll leave at the first sign of favoritism, I promised Ethan and Lily. And remember, your worth isn't determined by anyone else's opinion or gifts. The dinner was a revelation. My parents had clearly made an effort. When it came time for dessert, they brought out 4 identical ice cream sundaes for the grandchildren. When Braden, Jenny's son, asked why he didn't get extra toppings like usual, my mother actually said, "Everyone gets the same, sweetheart. That's how we're doing things now." Jenny shot me a look across the table, part annoyance, part reluctant understanding. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside. "I want you to know we're trying, Melissa. It's not easy to change habits. I appreciate the effort, Mom. That's all I've been asking for." "Your father and I have been talking. We realize we may have shown some preferences in the past. It wasn't intentional." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "Anyway," she continued, "we're setting up college funds for all 4 grandchildren. Equal amounts for each of them." I was stunned. That's wonderful, Mom. Thank you. Susan had a long talk with us," she admitted. "Made us see things differently. And seeing how much it meant to you, enough to keep the children away from us, it made us realize we needed to change." It wasn't a full admission or apology, but it was something, a step in the right direction. Over the next year, things continued to improve. There were still occasional slip-ups and moments of tension, but the blatant favoritism had largely disappeared. My parents attended Ethan's science fair and Lily's dance recital. They remembered their favorite books and hobbies. Christmas and birthdays featured gifts of comparable value and thoughtfulness for all the grandchildren. Jenny and I had our own reckoning. One afternoon, while our kids were playing in my parents' backyard, she confessed, "I knew they favored my kids. I didn't want to see it because it benefited us." "Did you ever think about how it affected Ethan and Lily?" She had the grace to look ashamed. "I guess I told myself kids don't notice that kind of thing. But that's not true, is it?" "No, it's not. They notice everything." "I'm sorry, Mel. I should have said something to Mom and Dad years ago." It wasn't a perfect resolution. My relationship with my parents would never be as close as Jenny's. There was too much history, too many years of feeling less than, but we had reached a place of respect and understanding. My children no longer dreaded visits to their grandparents' house. They no longer compared their gifts to their cousins and found themselves wanting. The most powerful moment came nearly 2 years after that fateful birthday when I'd finally had enough. We were at my parents' house for Lily's birthday. She opened a gift from them, a beautiful dress in exactly her size and favorite color, along with tickets to a ballet she'd been wanting to see. "Thank you, Grandma and Grandpa," she said, her smile genuine and bright. "This is perfect." My mother looked at me across the room, and I saw in her eyes that she understood what I'd been fighting for all along. It wasn't about the monetary value of gifts or equal treatment for its own sake. It was about making all her grandchildren feel valued, loved, and worthy of thoughtfulness. Later that evening, as we packed up to leave, my father pulled me aside. "You were right," he said, the words clearly difficult for him. "We didn't treat the kids fairly. I'm sorry it took such drastic measures for us to see it." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "You're a good mother, Melissa. Better than we deserved." It wasn't everything I'd wanted to hear over the years, but it was enough. I had stood my ground, protected my children, and ultimately changed a toxic family dynamic. I hadn't destroyed relationships. I'd rebuilt them on healthier foundations. As we drove home that night, Lily clutched her new dress and chattered excitedly about the upcoming ballet. Ethan asked if Grandpa could help with his new robotics project. David squeezed my hand across the console, a silent acknowledgement of the battle we'd fought and won. "Mom?" Ethan asked from the back seat. "Remember when Grandma and Grandpa used to give us broken stuff and say we should be grateful?" "Yes, honey." "I'm glad you didn't let them do that anymore." It made me feel like I wasn't as good as Braden and Madison. "You've always been just as good, Ethan. Better even because you're you." "I know that now," he said simply. And that, I realized, was the true victory. Not the equal gifts or the college funds or even the belated apologies. The victory was in my children knowing their worth couldn't be diminished by anyone, not even family. When we got home, I took out the family events folder I'd kept all those years and placed it in our recycling bin. We wouldn't need it anymore. We had finally broken free from the cycle of favoritism and manipulation, not through revenge or cruelty, but through boundaries, truth, and persistence. As I tucked Lily into bed that night, she said sleepily, "I like going to Grandma and Grandpa's house now." "I'm glad, sweetheart. You fixed it, Mommy. You fixed our family." Not completely, not perfectly, but enough, and that was all that mattered.